Perfect. Yeah. No, I was able to make that change. Do you guys see the screen in front of you with the slide deck title
Yes.
slide?
Yeah, yes.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. I'll start letting folks in around right when 2 o'clock hits. So we should be good here. Um, I'm making a mental note to get to the summary slide with the email that you had mentioned, the updated email, and the one pager kind of screenshot around maybe like 2:40, 2:45, so that we can save room for questions. So I'll do my best to make sure that that's all on track.
Yeah. Transparently, Tim, I don't know if it'll take 45 minutes to go through the deck we have, so there may be
True.
significant questions.
Yeah, that is right. Yeah, if we end up flying through this, maybe within like 25 minutes to 30 minutes, leave some more time for questions. I'm not at all opposed to that as well. So, um, yeah, we should be good. Right. I think we're right at 2, so I'll start letting folks in. We are recording the meeting, so this will be available to folks as a resource offline, and I'll make a note of that as well. Okay.
Hey, John. Hey, I'm here today. Hey, good to see you, John. How are you? Good, good. Are you, so what's going on you guys' side? I was in the webinar. I was in the webinar yesterday, by the way, the V2X no phone webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tim Cho with Clean Fields, Ohio. We're letting people into the meeting right now, so just bear with us for another minute or so. I've gone ahead and muted everyone just so we don't have that any background audio. But yeah, thanks for joining. If you're able to mute yourselves, if you are unmuted, feel free to mute yourselves. But yeah, it looks like we're letting more folks in, so just stay sit tight with us, and we'll get started momentarily. We have both Clean Fields Ohio and AEP Ohio here on the call, ready to present on the plug-in electric vehicle rate program. So we'll get started momentarily, and thanks for being with us. Okay, I think everyone that was in the waiting room has been admitted. So thank you again for joining. Yeah, welcome. Thanks for taking time out of your day to learn about AEP Ohio's plug-in electric vehicle rate program. This is part of a education series webinar series where we're holding 3 of these education sessions to all of the customers of AEP Ohio who are interested in electrifying their businesses or their homes. There are 2 different rates here that we'll go through, one for residential and one for public / commercial. So we'll dive into that obviously, but I'm excited to kind of talk more about electric vehicles and the ways that your local utility, AEP Ohio, is kind of running through that and making options available for you to save some money with this rate. So with that, I'll just kind of run through our agenda for today's meeting. We want to provide a real brief introduction to Clean Fields Ohio and AEP Ohio for those of you that do not know who we are and it's your first time interacting and engaging with us. We'd be happy to just let you know who we are and what our background is and what our goals are for the future. And then, a big chunk of this meeting is to really provide an overview of the program, about the PEV rate. And while we're doing that, we want to be able to provide a comparison of this specific rate to the standard distribution rates and what customers currently could be paying, as opposed to what they could be saving with this new rate. And obviously, there's different eligibility requirements and different benefits, and kind of breaking down what it really entails with this rate and enrolling. So we want to kind of allow you all to understand some of the cost saving scenarios that current customers are experiencing with the rate compared to the standard rate. So we're hoping that that's kind of an insight for you all to take with you. And then also providing some options on other available special rates
Sorry, Cora.
as
Sorry,
well.
sweetie.
So with all that, we should run that within 30 to 35 minutes and save some time for questions at the end, 15 to 20 minutes or so, and should be out of here by the end of the hour. So that'll be the agenda for today's meeting. And as I mentioned, Clean Fuels Ohio is co-hosting this to be able to work with different fleets, public agencies, cities, private businesses to help them achieve their goals around alternative fuel vehicles, anything transitioning away from conventional fuel types, whether if it's a way for them to save some money, get some return on investment for any plan to convert their vehicles to something a lot more cleaner, and have also kind of transitioned into working on a lot of national and federal fronts, specifically as it pertains to different diesel vehicle replacement programs, the National Electrical Vehicle Infrastructure Program through NEVI and the DOE and the DOT. So we're a big player on a lot of fronts, not just at the state level, but also at the regional and the federal level. So we definitely bring a lot of experience and history with us in our 22-year experience. 21-year experience, 22 starting next year. But something else that we want folks to know is that we're a designated U.S. Department of Energy Clean Cities Coalition. So what that basically means is we're a technology deployment arm for the DOE, and basically leverage a lot of their expertise and knowledge and their resources from the different federal agencies, the national laboratories, and other clean cities coalitions across the country. There's currently around 75 sister coalitions just like us that do similar work that we do across all 50 states in the country, and even some territories as well. So we're not just one single coalition, but we're one of many. But we're the one for Ohio, and people look to us to be that go-to resource for anything to improve air quality and health, reduce environmental pollution, and to really strengthen the economy through the use of domestic fuels and energy saving vehicles. So we're based here in Columbus. So if you're local and would love to interact with us, we just had our annual conference wrap up last week, but I'm always looking to meet up in person or talk with you virtually. If there's anything else you'd like to talk through, whether it's electrification or anything else across the alternative fuels spectrum or transportation spectrum. So that's a little bit about us. I'll stop talking and allow AEP Ohio to kind of give a brief introduction to them. But a lot of you are here because AEP Ohio, but I'll also let them talk about themselves. So Brian, feel free to take it away. I think you were on mute, Brian, or let's see here. I think we can unmute you. All right.
Apologies, everyone. I didn't have admin rights to click on my button to unmute me. I kept getting a warning light click up. So real quick, AEP Ohio, serves 1.5 million customers, and you can see the service territory there. It's all over the state. I mean, centralized in Columbus, but goes all the way up to Lima, down to Marietta, all the way down to Portsmouth. So, there's, for context, 44,600 gigawatt hours last year. Little reference point, that's, typical residential home uses about 11,000 kWh annually. So that's 4 million residential homes from that load sales right there. One of the other things is we have almost 1 million AMI meters. Some of the benefits of AMI meters is opening up some of these tariffs that we're going to talk about to be able to see those time of use rates. So Tim, can you shift to the next slide? So I know this is an eye chart, and I apologize in advance, but Tim's going to publish these online so everyone can have the background and reference points if they want to review this later. So the base case that we did in 2020, which was approved in June and went into effect December 2021, we had 2 tariffs. One is a residential time of use tariff, the PEV tariff. So there's 2 forms of this. It's a whole home demand rate with an off-peak energy component, sorry, I got that backwards. Whole home rate with an off-peak demand component, as well as a reduced energy charge, or you could do a separately metered version of it for just your EV load. So Al will get into the particulars in a bit, but understand if you do whole home, everything in there matters to you. So when you wash your dishes, when you do your dryer, when you heat your water. So that load shifting can all be beneficial or negative to you depending on how that usage is structured. So this tariff is limited to 500 customers. The next tariff I'm going to talk about is also limited to 500 customers. So public charging, from the case, there was a GS, general service time of use rate. It was only eligible for 10 kW and below. For public charging, DC fast chargers and L2, that demand restriction is lifted. So if you're open to the public and separately meter the service with no other load on it, you're allowed to be able to get onto these rates to be able to get benefit for, the non-demand rate that can really help you until the load factors of these increase. What do I mean by that? Is if these aren't being charged too much, it helps you avoid demand charges for these customers to still be able to offer these services to them when they come to your business or to your park or any other place where they come to charge. Tim, can you shift to the next slide? Al? Tim, you
Yeah, I
have
want
to
to make sure everyone can hear me. Good. Yeah. Thank you. My name's Al Kohler. Been with AEP for a while, and I have some experience with the PEV rate, but I want to talk about it here a little bit. I think I would start by saying that the plug-in EV rate, the PEV rate, can be supplied or delivered through a couple of methods, through a single phase, or in the case of like public or a DC fast charger is probably a 3-phase meter. But let's talk about the tables. There are 2 tables on this slide. The one on the left is talking about the comparison of the PV rate to our standard residential service rate. The PEV rate is in the center of the one on the left. And you'll see the customer charge is $10 for the PEV rate. That's per month. There's an on-peak demand charge, and this is dollars per kilowatt hour. It's $2.14 per kilowatt hour for on-peak demand. And the energy charge is at 1.31563 cents. That's in cents per kilowatt hour. Now, that's about half of what the standard residential service rate is. The energy charge for it's over in the rightmost column on this left table. It's at 2.63125. And the customer charge is the same. So you could be billed one of these 2 ways. If you have a PEV, you might consider this PEV tariff. The one thing I would comment about too, essentially the kilowatt hour cost is half as much on the plug-in, on the PEV rate. So assuming you used 1,000 kilowatt hours only and didn't have any on-peak demand charge, you'd save about $13 a month. But this fluctuates as depends on how many kilowatt hours you use and what the on-demand rate is, or what the on-peak demand amount is per month. So on the right-hand side, the table on the right is the public charging installations. These are going to be commercially metered, and this is basically the customer charge here. It's $9.40. That's the monthly fee. The energy charge is slightly less. This customer typically uses more energy. Also, this might be level 2 or DC fast chargers. Can we go to the next slide, please, Tim? Again, I'm talking about the rate eligibility. So to participate in the PEV rate, a customer on the left-hand column, again, we're talking about charging an electric vehicle at home. This is a residential customer. So this is available to any of our residential customers. The assumption is that you have a plug-in electric or hybrid plug-in hybrid vehicle. There are a couple ways you can utilize this tariff or this rate schedule. It can be on your whole home. In other words, everything you use runs through the home meter, and you could be billed in that manner. Or you could also install a separate meter for just the charging station. And depending on the customer, that may be beneficial. When we bill the demand for this customer, it's billed on the on-peak hours. The KW demand is billed during on-peak hours, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's weekdays, Monday through Friday, and that's all year. So talk a little bit about the charging stations for public use. This one's slightly different. Of course, this tariff's available, again, as I mentioned before. This could be level 2 chargers or a DC fast charger. Particularly, though, this charging station is open for public use. It would have to be on this tariff. And it's for a new charging station that was installed after June 1st, 2021. Again, we probably can't say enough. The chargers have to be open to the general public to be eligible for this rate schedule. And you're going to have an AMI meter. That's probably not going to be any sort of issue. We have AMI meters for most customers at this point. There's a different peak hours for this. All the charges are going to be in accordance with the GS time of use schedule. Although the 10 kW maximum demand limitation doesn't apply to this PEV rate. It's available. The on-peak hours are basically PJM on-peak hours. That's going to be weekdays, except legal holidays. That's going to be November through April from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. So that's like winter peaking hours on PJM. And also the summer peaking hours, May through October, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Again, I'll reiterate that this tariff, the PEV tariff, is limited to the first 500 customers as defined by their service meter address. So that's, again, it's the first 500 residential customers it's eligible to participate in, and the first 500 commercial or public charging stations. So it's 500 of each. Tim, can we go to the next slide again, please? we made this slide by looking at a customer 6 months use on the PEV rate. And if we look at this across from left to right, the first row down that says February, for the month, this customer used 2,310 kilowatt hours, and they had an on-peak demand of 9.8 kW. And if they were billed on the standard distribution rate, this customer would be charged $60.78 for that. Now, this isn't the total bill, but this is the example, what this customer has. But this is going to show what the difference is between these rates. So this is what this is going to illustrate the customer savings. So if you carry on to the right on that same row, you see this PEV energy rate. So for the kilowatt hours, they would be charged $30.39. And on the PEV demand rate, that portion would be $20.97. In this case, this customer, instead of being billed the $60.78 on the PEV rate, it would be $51.36. Now, I'm not going to go through every row like that, but if you look across these, you'll see that each one of these are showing the savings in the 6-month period. I point out the month of May, though, if you look at that one, it's essentially the lowest kilowatt hour consumption, and it's mid-range on the kilowatt hour or the kW demand. And the savings here is down to about $3 a month on the PEV rate for that month. And that sort of illustrates that you have to be careful with your on-peak demand. You don't, if you have a higher demand and lower kilowatt hours, this rate might not work. So that 1 month there sort of shows how it trends down. It's possible to have a negative month there if you had really low kilowatt hour use and a high demand. So the rate isn't perfect for everyone. This customer saved on average across these 6 months about $9.75. That's about $58.48 for that 6-month period. And that's comparing the PEV rate to the standard distribution rate. I think we're ready for the next slide too, Tim. I'll let you take over from here, Tim.
Great. Yeah, and we went through those slides pretty quickly, but can always refer back to some of those slides during the Q&A portion. But this is a one-pager that we've been kind of funneling around to different groups and channels, and would like to make this accessible for you all as like a visual resource of what the rate entails. If you'd like to share this with any of your peers, so we have this available, and can share this out via email following up from this meeting along with these slides. But if you're interested in signing up for the PEV rate program, and if you meet these eligibility requirements, and if you kind of want to look at them again, we can always bounce back. But the direct phone number to sign up for the PEV rate program is listed on the screen here, provided by the AEP team. And for more information on actual EVs and everything that AEP Ohio is doing towards electrification, EV charging, fleet electrification, they have a whole web page and different sub web pages describing some of the work and the efforts that they're doing to promote that and to push that. And Cleanfield, Ohio certainly does a lot of work with electric vehicles as well, as it pertains to fleet analyses, helping allocate and identify funding sources both at the state and federal level, but also help fleets and site hosts and individual motorists just learn and become more educated about EVs. So not just AEP, but Cleanfield, Ohio as well. And we have a lot of folks on the call that I can pick and point out just by looking at some of the names here who are also in this space and can point to as a resource. But if there are any actual questions about the rate, I'd say reach out to the email listed here, businesssolutions@aep.com. And I think this is a great chance to actually ask some of those questions, in person here, virtually, to Brian and Al. If you do have any questions, I do see that some folks have asked questions already, and Brian and Al have responded very quickly. But that's the formal email to reach out to if you're interested in signing up. So I guess any other final thing or note you'd like to add to that, Brian or Al, about the email or some of the other resources that AEP has before I move on to the next slide? If not, I think we're all good here. So I'll kind of set up the next portion here, and as we're doing that, folks, feel free to continue asking your questions, and we can respond to those accordingly. I did pose a discussion question to everyone on the chat here, so maybe this would be a good time to look at that. But we kind of want to know which type of the PEV rate applies to you, or are you interested more in, is it the residential rate or is it the public charging rate? And the reason why we want to do that is to kind of see who we're engaging with and kind of get a projection of who would be more interested in what, and which rate is going to garner more interest, in the next several months as we continue to hold some of these educational sessions and start to identify potential signups for the program. And so you can feel free to just type in residential or public on the chat here for us to see. If you don't want to make it public, you can definitely directly message us, myself or Al or Brian included. But I'd like to have everyone kind of interact in that setting with the discussion question, as we kind of look to gather more of that information. And as folks are doing that, I'll set up some of the updates that's coming up around these educational sessions, around the rates. We do have another webinar coming up in January. The exact time and date is to be determined. Going to look to schedule that after the new year. We understand folks are busy or MIA in December with the holidays, so we figured January would be a good time to have another webinar and invite folks who weren't able to make it to this one, and offer another chance to go through the program and maybe answer some questions. And hopefully at that point have a lot of inquiries through email about the rate and can answer more of your questions. And then around February or March, exact date and time also to be determined, but we'll hold a third educational session webinar to again answer those questions, provide an overview for folks who are looking at this information for the first time as well, but also hopefully at that point have a good idea of how many potential signups we have for both the residential and the public rate. And again, just to really emphasize this, the program is only allowing 500 residential and 500 public charging customers to sign up for the tariffs. So please note that these are limited in space, and the quicker you can figure out if you're eligible and if you feel like this is a fit for you, and if you're an EV owner or looking to install public charging at your business or your site host or wherever, or would like to talk more about public charging, we can always have follow-up conversations around that and how that rate could specifically benefit you when you're looking at your bill at the end of every month. And kind of looking at this long term, what we want to do ultimately once these online webinars are done is to ultimately obtain a lot of customer feedback through the form of surveys and focus groups, specifically from the months of February to April of next year. So that's just around the corner. Once we hold these second and third webinars in January and February, we want to start to directly interact with AEP customers that would be interested in signing up, but also the ones that probably have signed up, and if we can get them enrolled earlier, then maybe get some direct feedback to see how that the tariffs are being effective to you or not, and would definitely help AEP in understanding how beneficial and useful the cost savings are and what folks are seeing from their end, but ultimately to gain more insight on how these tariffs are benefiting AEP Ohio customers. And so what you all can look forward to is, sometime around January, we'll distribute a survey form to see if folks are interested in joining this focus group. We'll send out some email language to kind of tee up that opportunity for folks that have attended all of our webinars. So by the end of the second webinar in January, we'll have that a bit more formalized to start up the focus groups. But the surveys will be available and sent out to everyone that we're attending these meetings. But we want to also incorporate a more specific way to interact and garner a lot of that interest and that effectiveness of the pilot. So with that, I know that was really quick here, but we're around halfway within the hour here. So this is a good time to possibly transition into questions. And feel free to ask questions through the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, we can allow folks to unmute themselves. It's not a huge group here, only around maybe 30 to 40. So we're definitely comfortable for folks to kind of raise their hand and unmute and ask questions if you have any. So we'll take questions at this time. Just looking through the chat here, I do think I see a question about the slides. Yep, we are planning to have this version. So this is the more kind of robust and detailed version. We're planning to have this shared with everyone here after the call, but there's also a more kind of comprehensive version that we plan to present at future meetings. This might be overwhelming for folks to kind of digest and soak in, but I think helpful in the long run if you're looking to seriously sign up for the program. And just looking at some of these responses, Brian and Al, I'm seeing a lot of residential, so that's a good kind of thing to have.
Yeah. So I'm trying to address the questions I go because I just got unmuted. I think Tom wants to ask a question. Jacob, can you unmute Tom? And then Aladeen?
Yep, I can go one by one here.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Thanks. So I'm still just trying to make sure I understand the basics of what was presented, and it's very helpful. I appreciate Clean Fields Ohio doing this and AEP being on to explain this. And so maybe starting with the more simple residential example, if I follow correctly, because most people only have one meter, you offer the integrated metering option. How expensive is it to add a second meter, and is that the customer's responsibility to pay?
Al, with a $10 service charge, we hook up the meter. The electric required the 240-volt circuit. Al, you know the answer to that, Julie?
So yeah, this is Julie. So thanks everyone for joining today. We're very excited to be offering our electric vehicle owners some options for charging. So if you decide on the separate meter option, I think there was a question in the chat, Tom, you had asked earlier, is that going to affect your demand on peak, right? So if you're not using that separate service on peak hours, then you would not, right? You just use them during the off-peak hours for charging. Then you would only have, you would have a low on-peak demand. If you have more than one vehicle, might be something you consider for the separate, more than one electric vehicle, because it's going to be more cost effective then. The issue with the separate meter, Tom, is what it's going to require on the customer side, I think is what you're asking. So we would install a meter just like we would for any new residential service. We would put the meter on the garage. However, the customer would be responsible for tapping off their existing panel and putting that 240 circuit out there in the garage, and then for us to
Yeah, they
connect
may have
to, right?
already paid the expense of doing that very thing. That's what I've done, although in full transparency, I'm up in First Energy territory, so
Hmm.
I'm interested. But let's say they have a 240 line. They've even got a new fancy car that they can program to only charge during off-peak hours. And of course, they can turn that off for the times when they absolutely need a charge to get somewhere. But in a typical commute or weekly or daily use, they have the flexibility to charge only off peak. So they want to set themselves up to do that. And so I'm just trying to puzzle out the payback period for them. So I think that there's probably a lot of potential by your average user, as long as they know about it and the hassle factor is reasonably low. It sounds like it is. I'm just trying to puzzle out the terminology because most of us residential folks don't get into demand charge, so we don't understand that
Right.
side of it.
Right. So typically what we've noticed is that the average customer on a whole home rate could save up to $100 a year. So, we saw an example earlier where some months were $3, some months were $7. It really is going to vary by the behavior of the homeowner. So this program is designed to have customers shift their load to off-peak hours.
Which is great,
Because
right?
Right. So that means if you're on the whole home rate, you want your electric dryer to run after 8 p.m. You want your electric vehicle to charge after 8 p.m. You want to run your dishwasher after 8 p.m. If you have a hot tub or a heated pool, it's probably not the best rate for you, right? It's probably not going to make sense for you. But the separate meter option would be the separate service. If you already have done that work, electrically in your garage, then it might benefit you to go ahead and do that. But you're looking at that extra $10 a month charge. That's the
Okay.
kicker, right? So
So really you're saying this PEV rate is not a PVE rate, PEV, it's a whole home rate, which is fine. It's just that then the customer who doesn't have the second additional meter has also an incentive to use all their other appliances mindfully, which
correct.
which is a
Yep.
positive thing, right? Or
Yes.
could be, for the grid and for themselves. So that's interesting to learn about that, and I appreciate the explanation.
You're welcome. Yep.
Tom, to be clear, it's both. So you could do the separate metered or the whole home. If you are on the whole home option, much of the things like Julie said and was said earlier is watch your dishwasher, watch your dryer. Those are all can be benefits or cost if you're not careful.
Yeah, and last comment for me, it would be probably in the winter heating and summer cooling season where those would be the trickiest to manage because there's going to be some days where you just gotta heat or cool on peak. But even then, maybe you could manage that. So that would be interesting to understand. And I do think it's good that AEP's investing the time and effort here. And if there's a group of customers who can show the value and the use cases, that maybe then could lead to broadening adoption. And that would be a positive thing.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that there is no restricted timeline to be on the rate. So if you wanted to try it for 6 months or 3 months, you could. And then if you decided you think you're spending more money than you would have, or your lifestyle is not conducive to shifting load to off peak, then you could switch back to the residential rate, regular residential rate.
So Tim, follow up kind of question I'm seeing from the meeting chat. People are interested in signing up for this rate. And so some of Tim's slides show the Business Solution Center or the helpline should be able to get into it. Ted, specifically, if you had issues, let's see if we can reach out, and if you would like to sign up or you want more information, just, we'll be able to talk to you. We'll try to reach out and see if we can get you solved for that.
One more item I'll add when you are signing up, you'll need to be patient. It's going to take, to the next bill cycle to get it transferred over. We have to reprogram the meter for the intervals that there's on peak and off peak. So that's a process we need to go through, and that's why you're required to have an AMI meter for this rate.
Yeah, there was another question. Is this the same link for both signing up for the residential and the public charging program, tariffs? I'm assuming they are, Brian and Julie. So if it's residential.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. It's the same contact.
Okay. So that question was from Loudon. I hope that answered your question. Feel free to add anything else if you'd like. I think you are unmuted.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you. I was just trying to get this slide pulled up again because some folks on here are simply residents who have electric cars, and they're not the junkies that we are about this whole thing about load, peak loading and all that. And I just wanted folks to have the opportunity to take a picture of the slide and be in the way if they wanted to.
Great. I think we're at a good point where we can take any new questions. I am looking through the chat. Don't see anything that wasn't addressed yet at this point, but again, folks, feel free to write this email down, take a screenshot or picture of it. If you want to be patient and wait, we can send this out to you immediately after, and all the links and the emails will be available, as well as the whole slide deck after this call. So, thankfully we had a whole team of AEP folks here to answer questions, and hoping to replicate that at future webinars to answer all your questions. But yeah, I'll open it up again if there's any other questions that folks would have. And if there's not, Jacob from Clean Fuels Ohio also did mention, you'll see here on the chat, a description on a project that we're participating in called Empower, which is really allowing Clean Fuels Ohio to look at the installation of workplace charging options to really, help inform a lot of these businesses and site hosts that are looking and are serious about installing EV charging infrastructure for their employees, to see what options are available to them. So we do have a website if you're interested in learning more. If you already have charging stations available at your workplace or at your site host, that where people work at, we'd love to talk with you a little bit more to see if you'd like to join this program to number one, provide a lot of insight to us on how that's benefited you and how that's been working for you so far. And if you're someone that's new to this and are looking to install charging in your workplace, or looking at least for some funding options available, and would like some help or assistance with that, this program also offers that kind of help. So it's a Department of Energy program we're working on with several other Clean Cities coalitions across the country. It's not just a statewide effort here, but a national one. And so I don't know, Jake, if you wanted to mention anything about that, but kind of just setting the stage up for that. If you did have anything, totally cool if you didn't.
No, you did a pretty good job of summarizing it. It's just, we have an opportunity through the U.S. Department of Energy to provide kind of technical support and consulting for places who are either looking to install workplace charging at any point of the planning process for that, or have recently installed workplace charging. So kind of going back, I think the earliest date you can qualify for the program is April 1st, 2022. But we can, help take people through the process, find good partners and the appropriate equipment, and then develop the internal procedures to make sure those chargers are actually available for your employees and your coworkers. I know we've all of us who have electric vehicles have experienced the struggle of finding an available charger sometimes. But so yeah, so we have an opportunity to help people through that entire process, and the U.S. Department of Energy will cover kind of everything from our end. So it's at absolutely no cost to our partners.
Thanks, Jake. So yeah, any other questions? We are don't definitely need to take up the whole hour, but we'll open it up for any other questions, or if you'd like to answer any of the other questions that we see here on the board, and that was directed to AEP, I guess.
Yeah, this is Julie. The question about the meter is common. It's an AMI meter. There's one more phase that we need to deploy AMI meters, which will be done in 2024, 2025. However, there are times when we were able to switch you sooner. So if you call in, we'll be able to, the Business Solutions Center will be able to tell if you have that meter, and if not, we can request one. Sometimes we can put one in, sometimes we can't. It just depends on where you're located. In regards to, I think it was Ted mentioned that they said they're not signing anybody up on the rate. That might just be some internal training issue that we're having, but definitely I would email with your phone number, your name, your account number, and that way it'll get to the right person instead of just calling in if you're having trouble. But it should be transferred to the right person. There's 2 associates at that number that we have that are specializing in these signups. So I apologize for that inconvenience. I think I answered all of them. I don't know if there's another one. Just please speak up.
Yeah, I'm monitoring the chat. I don't think I see anything unanswered at this point. So if anyone has any other questions, feel free to unmute and speak up. We can answer these questions with the remaining amount of time we have left. But if not, be sure to keep your eye out for this slide deck that we'll send out to everyone. And this was a great turnout for our first webinar educational session series. So if you want to learn more, if you're interested in signing up, and reach out to the Business Solutions Center and have some kind of more questions that you gather between now and January, and want to sit down again with us and ask some questions, definitely encourage you to do that at our January meeting. We're trying to schedule that as soon as possible so that we have the date penciled in, but be patient with us as we schedule for that next meeting. But we're hopefully looking to send that out soon after the Thanksgiving holiday, so that we have that booked as soon as possible. All right, so I think if there are no other questions, this would be a good stopping point. But definitely don't feel like you can't reach out to us, myself included, and Jake as well from the Clean Fuels Ohio team. Happy to facilitate any questions or concerns about the program, and we can funnel a lot of those to the AEP team. But also, you do have access to questions about the program with this email listed here. So thanks so much for the feedback, everyone. It's very constructive, and I'm glad to see a lot of good insight and positive feedback on this, and hopefully look to see you at the next webinar in January. But please feel free to reach out to us sooner if you do have any questions. So we thank you for your time. We did record this webinar as well, and it will be available on Clean Fuels Ohio's website and YouTube channel as well, hopefully sooner than later. So we appreciate everyone. Have a good rest of your week, and have a good Thanksgiving holiday as well. And looking forward to talking with you all again soon. So thanks everyone, and have a great rest of your Thursday.